Monday morning meetings were never a good time, but today felt different. From the moment I walked into the office at 8:45, the air was wrong. A few colleagues kept their heads down, staring at their screens, pretending not to see me. Someone in the break room went quiet as I passed. I walked to my desk and sat down, powered up my computer. A new email popped up in the corner of the screen. Sender, Human Resources. Subject, Notice of Termination of Employment Contract. I opened it. The wording was standard. Nothing to complain about. Due to organizational restructuring, your position has been eliminated. Effective immediately. Your employment is hereby terminated. Below that, the electronic signature of HR Director Tian Wei. The date was today. The time was 8:20 a.m. I stared at the email for a few seconds. Then I stood up and walked to Tian Wei's office. The door was open. Tian Wei sat behind her desk, typing at her computer. A half-finished Starbucks cup sat on the corner of her desk. She looked up when she heard me knock and produced a perfectly professional smile. Zhou Ran. You got the email. I got it. I stood in the doorway. I want to know why it's in the email. Organizational restructuring. She pushed her chair back, leaned against the headrest, and folded her hands on the desk. You know the company's situation. Cost-cutting is the direction. Finance is being streamlined. Your position was first on the list. I've been here 3 years. Last year's performance review was outstanding. When you streamline, you cut the outstanding people first. Tian Wei's smile didn't waver, but it didn't reach her eyes. She picked up her coffee, took a sip, set it down, and slowly turned the cup in her fingers. Zhou Ran. Performance reviews are one thing. Role fit is another. I'm sure your abilities are fine, but finance needs someone more integrated. You're not great at cross-departmental collaboration. You must feel that yourself. Which department? Which project? Give me an example. Tian Wei's expression flickered. She probably hadn't expected me to press that far, but she quickly recovered her practiced ease. Leaning back with the comfortable superiority of a senior speaking to a junior, Zhou Ran. Let's not beat around the bush. Last week, you and Marketing Director Su had a shouting match in the conference room. It made a terrible impression. He's a director that you're a junior manager. You slammed the table in front of everyone. Word got upstairs that Su padded his numbers in the budget review. I caught it in my financial review. He slammed the table first. I just stood up, but someone filmed you slamming the table and posted it in the company chat. I looked at her. Who filmed it? Tian Wei didn't answer. She shifted to a lighter tone. Zhou Ran. You're young. You can develop your career elsewhere. The company is offering you the legal N+1 severance. Plus, considering your performance, I managed to get you an extra month's salary. Your termination letter will be ready this afternoon. HR will handle your benefits transfer. Let's part on good terms. Okay. She pulled a document from her drawer and slid it across the desk. A draft separation agreement, matching the email, with one extra line. Party B voluntarily waives the right to file for labor arbitration or litigation. I flipped through it, then set it back down. Director Tian. I'm not signing this. Tian Wei's smile faded slightly. Zhou Ran. This is the company's decision. Whether you sign or not doesn't change the termination. Then let's do it by the book. I've received the termination notice. Under labor law, a unilateral termination requires adequate justification. Organizational restructuring needs supporting documents and board resolutions. Otherwise, I can file for arbitration. Tian Wei stared at me for a few seconds. Her professional smile slowly disappeared, replaced by something else. A cold, mocking look. Zhou Ran. What's the point of fighting this? You think a junior manager can take on the company? How long can your so-called evidence hold up? The company has a whole legal department. You can't even afford a lawyer on 1 month's salary. She stood up, braced her hands on the desk, and leaned forward slightly. Her voice pitched to carry beyond the office walls. I'll be straight with you. You're leaving whether you like it or not. 3 years here, and you've built nothing. No connections. No real network. What are you going to do out there? I'll tell you the honest truth that you can't survive without this company. She leaned back, picked up her coffee, and smiled. It was a practiced smile. Too complete, like she'd rehearsed it many times. I stood in front of her desk, watching that smile. Then I smiled too. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it in front of her, opened WhatsApp, and scrolled to a pinned conversation. The contact name was just one word. Dad. I sent a voice message. Not loud, but the office was quiet enough. Tian Wei would have heard every word. Dad. Sunflower, the subsidiary of Xingyuan Group. There's an HR director here named Tian Wei. She fired me today. Inadequate grounds. Bad attitude. She said I can't survive without this company. Please look into it. I put the phone back in my pocket and looked at Tian Wei. Her expression shifted through several nuanced stages in the space of a few seconds. First, confusion, then a dismissive "what the hell are you doing" look. Then, realization dawned. She'd just heard a name she couldn't possibly not recognize. Xingyuan Group. Her smile was still there, but the lines were no longer natural. Who? Who did you just send that to? My dad. Your dad is the founder of Xingyuan Group. Zhou Guoliang. I met her eyes. Director Tian. I listed Zhou Guoliang in the family member section of my onboarding form. Did you ever read it? Tian Wei's face went a shade paler. Her lips moved. Her hand slipped off the coffee cup, brushed against the termination agreement on the desk, then withdrew. You're joking. I'm not joking. I looked at her face as the color drained from it. My voice calm. You were right about one thing. I really can't survive without this company, because my dad sent me here to gain experience. And now that I'm done, I'm supposed to go back and take over the group headquarters. I was planning to resign next month anyway. You just moved it up. Thank you. Tian Wei's mouth hung open, like a fish pulled from the water. Footsteps passed in the hallway outside. Approaching, then receding. No one stopped. I picked up the separation agreement, folded it, and put it in my pocket. I'll keep this, I said. Might need it later. I turned to leave. At the door, I paused without looking back. Director Tian. Your own termination notice should arrive within the hour. You might want to prepare. I walked out of her office. A window at the end of the hallway was open. November wind rushed in, cold and bracing. As I walked through the open plan area, the colleagues who'd been pretending not to see me all looked up at once, their gazes drawn like magnets. I walked to my desk and started packing. A mug, a notebook, a pen I'd used for 2 years, a small succulent on the corner. I placed them one by one into a box. The colleague at the next desk was Zhao Lei, a finance specialist who'd worked alongside me for 2 years. She lowered her voice. Zhou Ran. What you just said. Is it true? True. You hid it for 3 years. I didn't want special treatment. I zipped the box shut. Zhao Lei. That reimbursement process optimization proposal you submitted last month. It's still stuck in approval. Right. Send it to my email. I'll handle it. Zhao Lei opened her mouth, her eyes reddening. She didn't speak, just nodded. I stood up, carried the box toward the elevator. As I passed Tian Wei's office, the door was shut, blinds tightly drawn. Through the door, I could hear a voice on the phone. Urgent. Strained. I smiled and kept walking. The elevator arrived. I stepped in, pressed the button for the lobby. As the numbers ticked down, my phone buzzed. A message from my dad. What was your HR person's name again? Tian Wei. Handled. HQ HR sent the notice 10 minutes ago. She'll be terminated within the hour. You okay? Fine. Thanks. Dad. Don't thank me. Come home for dinner. The elevator doors opened. The lobby's crystal chandelier blazed bright. The receptionist stood up, looking at me with an expression that said she wanted to speak, but didn't know how. Zhou. Mr. Zhou. It's okay. I nodded at her. Maybe see you around. I pushed through the doors and stepped outside. The sunlight was harsh, the November sky a brilliant white blue. I stood on the steps in front of the building, my box at my feet, wind lifting the hem of my jacket. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I hadn't saved it, but the caller ID made me pause. Tian Wei. I answered. Her voice was dry, rushed. A world away from the slow, coffee-sipping HR director who'd told me I couldn't survive without this company. Mr. Zhou. I just received a notice from HQ HR. They're asking me to leave today. Mr. Zhou. I didn't know who you were. Please. Can you make an exception? I have children, elderly parents at home. This job. I really need this job. I stood in the sunlight, listening to her rapid breathing on the other end. Director Tian. I said, you told me I couldn't survive without this company. You've got your own termination notice now, haven't you? The line went silent. I hung up and put the phone in my pocket, picked up the box and walked down the steps. The sun was warm on my face. The ginkgo trees along the street had turned fully yellow. The wind sent their leaves spinning down in a shower of gold. I walked a ways, then turned back to look at the office building. 7th floor. Figures moved behind the windows. In 1 hour, Tian Wei would receive her own termination notice, and I was already gone. I walked 2 blocks, stopped at a convenience store, bought a bottle of water, and sat on the plastic chair outside for a while. My phone kept buzzing. First message. Zhao Lei. Zhou Ran. You just left. And Tian Wei ran out of her office straight to the GM's office. Face was pale as paper. Second, another colleague from my department. Zhou, you hid this too well. The whole office is blowing up. Everyone's guessing if your dad is the Zhou Guoliang third. Marketing director sued if the one I'd had the shouting match with last week. Zhou ran. Heard what happened this morning. I was out of line before. Please accept my apologies that I didn't reply to any of them. I turned the phone face down on the table, unscrewed the water bottle, and drank slowly. The convenience store's automatic door opened and closed. Customers came and went, none paying attention to the man on the plastic chair. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows across me. I sat there, feeling like a machine that had just been paused, humming for 3 years. Finally stopped. For 3 years at Sunflower. I'd never told anyone about my family background. On the onboarding forms, under family members, I'd written, Father, Zhou Guoliang. Occupation. Self-employed. HR had probably glanced at it and filed it away. No one ever imagined that the finance manager who biked to work every day and ate the $8 lunch special was the son of Xingyuan Group's founder, but I wasn't trying to play some tragic role. I just wanted to see how far I could go without my family's name. 3 years in, I'd gone from finance assistant to finance manager, controlling cost management on 5 projects, overseeing budgets totaling over $100 million. Aside from that one slam table with Director Sue, I'd made no mistakes. And then an HR director who'd gotten her job through connections had tossed me out with an organizational restructuring that I finished the water, tossed the bottle in recycling, and walked to the subway. Back at my rental apartment. It was almost noon. The place was small but had good light. I'd lived here 2 years. Hadn't done much to it. A few photos I'd taken hung on the walls. CPA textbooks were stacked on my desk that I'd passed 2 sections. Had 3 left to go. I opened the box and unpacked my office things one by one. Succulent on the windowsill, mug back in the dish rack, notebook on the desk corner. When I picked up the pen I'd used for 3 years, I paused. There was a faint scratch on the barrel. A mark from one night when I'd worked until dawn and knocked it against the desk edge. I'd bought it with my first-year performance bonus. Not expensive, but I'd used it every day since. I put the pen in the cup and sat on the edge of the bed, looking out the window. Downstairs, a chestnut vendor was calling out his wares. The sweet, nutty smell drifted up on the breeze. I took out my phone and scrolled through the company group chat. Hundreds of messages had piled up, but no one had tagged me. I opened it. The top message was an announcement from admin. Internal personnel adjustment notice. Official wording that due to operational optimization, certain positions are being adjusted. Signed by the GM's office. The comment section was silent. I closed the group chat and opened another conversation. My dad's message from an hour ago. Come home for dinner. I replied. Tonight. Need to sleep first. He didn't respond. He probably knew I needed the rest. I put the phone on the pillow and lay down. A spiderweb in the ceiling corner. Tiny. Swaying gently. I watched it until my consciousness drifted. When I woke, it was dark. The chestnut vendor was gone, replaced by a roasted sweet potato cart. I checked my phone. Past 6 p.m. 2 missed calls from the same unknown number. I didn't call back. I got up, splashed water on my face, changed into a clean jacket, and caught a ride to my father's place. Xingyuan Group's headquarters was in the city's most bustling commercial district, but my dad didn't spend much time there. He lived in an old villa district on the west side. A 3-story house with a small yard full of roses and osmanthus trees. When I arrived, the housekeeper was cooking in the kitchen. The smell of oil, ginger, and green onions drifted through the window. My father sat on the living room sofa reading his phone, reading glasses on, a blanket over his lap. He was nearly 60, mostly gray, but sharp. When he saw me, he lifted his chin. Here. Wash up. Dinner's ready. We ate without talking about work. I didn't bring it up, neither did he. We shared a quiet meal. I had a bowl of the pork rib soup he'd asked the housekeeper to make. Rich and warm, settling in my stomach like comfort. Then he set down his chopsticks and leaned back, looking at me. Your HR director, well, she got her notice. I know. She called my secretary 3 times this afternoon. First to plead, second to apologize, third to ask if she could come to the house to apologize in person. He took a sip of tea. I had her turned away. I kept eating. Didn't respond. What do you want to do with her? I finished my rice. Set down my chopsticks. The termination notice is already sent. Follow the normal process. She did it to me. Do owe it to her. Not more. Not less. My father studied me for a moment, then nodded. You're softer than your mother. Not softer. I said. Just unnecessary. He smiled and said nothing more. After dinner, I stood in the yard for a while. The osmanthus was almost done blooming, but the air still carried a faint sweetness. A car passed beyond the wall. headlights sweeping across the roses and disappearing. My phone rang again. The unknown number. Third time. I hesitated, then answered. Mr. Zhou. It's Tian Wei. Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying for hours. I've received the formal notice. I've been trying to reach you all afternoon. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have spoken to you that way. But Mr. Zhou, I really can't lose this job. My son's tuition is due next month. My mother is in the hospital. My husband lost his job last month. I listened. Didn't interrupt. Director Tian. I said when she paused to catch her breath. Your son's tuition. Your mother in the hospital. Your husband unemployed. When you fired me this afternoon, did you consider that I might face those same things? Silence. That I won't comment on your professional competence. I said, but what you did to me today proves you're not fit for HR. An HR person who only knows how to wield power based on who's in front of them. When they meet someone with more power, they can't handle it. This is your own doing. Tian Wei said nothing more, only quiet breathing. Then, in a hoarse whisper, I'm sorry. The line went dead. I put the phone back in my pocket and stood there a moment. Night wind rustled through the osmanthus. Its scent faint and fleeting. I turned and walked inside. My father was watching the news. A drone shot of an office building flashed on screen. I recognized it. The Sunflower Building. Going back to work tomorrow. He asked, no. I packed my things today. What do you want to do? Then I sat across from him and thought for a moment. Finish the CPA. Then come to headquarters. You've been telling me to come back. My father took off his reading glasses and looked at me. Something unreadable in his gaze. Like a stone finally settling into place. Fine. Your call. I stayed at the house that night. Woke in the middle of the night. Moonlight, bright, through the window, casting checkered shadows across the bedsheets, through the sheer curtains. I lay there, thinking about Tian Wei's smile this morning. That sure, relaxed smile that said you can't touch me. How long had that smile lasted? From the moment I left her office to the moment she got HQ's notice. About an hour and a half. Enough time for someone to fall from heaven to earth. From you can't survive without this company to please let me keep my job. I turned over, pulled the blanket tighter. Rose branches swayed beyond the window. Wind slipped through the cracks. Tomorrow was new. When I woke the next morning, the sun was high. I came downstairs to find my father watering the roses in the yard, wearing an old sweater vest, hose in hand. He saw me, turned off the water, cooled the hose, and hung it back on the wall, awake. There's porridge in the kitchen. I went in and had a bowl of porridge with pickled vegetables. The housekeeper was wiping down the stove. She asked what I wanted for lunch. I said not to bother. I might be out. Back in the living room, I had 2 new messages on my phone. One from Zhao Lei. Zhou ran. The office is chaos. Tian Wei came in this morning to pack her things. Her face was swollen. Cried all morning. The GM called the entire finance department into a meeting. Said from now on, everything follows policy. No one can override HR decisions for any reason. Guess what? He never said your name once during the whole meeting. But everyone knew it was because of you. I didn't reply. Scrolled down. Second message. From an unexpected source. Director Su. The marketing director I'd had the table slamming incident with. His message was more specific than yesterday's. Zhou ran. I heard what happened. When I said apologies yesterday, it wasn't empty talk. I meant it. About last week's budget meeting. I did pad the numbers. You called me out. And that was my fault. I slammed the table out of embarrassment. And when Tian Wei used that incident against you, I didn't speak up for you. That was wrong. If you have time, I'd like to take you to dinner and make it right. I stared at this for a moment. Director Su had drive. But he had his flaws too. Impulsive. Appearance-focused. It wasn't the first time he'd fudged data. But I hadn't expected him to actually admit he was wrong. That was something Tian Wei couldn't do. I replied. No dinner needed. Just keep your numbers clean from now on. One more time. And it's different. He replied fast. Understood. Thank you. I put the phone down. Leaned back on the sofa. Sunlight streamed through the window, drawing a long stripe across the wooden floor. The air carried the last trace of osmanthus and the crispness of morning. Nothing much to do that morning. I sat in the yard reading for half the day. CPA textbook. Chapter 3. Did a practice set. Missed 2. Rusty. But my mind still worked. Around noon, I got a call from the group vice president, Mr. Meng. He'd worked with my father for over 20 years. His voice had that steady, professional bearing of old-school executives. With a touch of warmth, Zhou ran. I heard about your situation. Your father told me. You're planning to come to HQ after the CPA. Yeah. Once I finish, good. HQ's finance center needs someone with full-scope experience. You'll come in as a senior manager. No rush. Take your time. Thanks. Uncle Ming. I sat in the yard after the call, letting the breeze wash over me. A magpie landed on the old locust tree beyond the wall, hopped twice, and flew away. That afternoon, something else happened. An unknown number texted me. A long message. I read the first few lines and understood who it was. Tian Wei's husband. He said Tian Wei had been crying since she got home last night, locked herself in the bedroom, and wouldn't come out. He'd coaxed the story out of her. He admitted she'd gone too far, but said she wasn't usually like that. Recent family pressures had piled up. Her mother in the hospital, their son's school tuition, him losing his job. All of it together had pushed her over the edge, which was why she'd said such cruel things. His final line. Mr. Zhou, I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm just telling you that what she said to you wasn't what she really thinks. It was her breaking down. She doesn't deserve to work in HR anymore. That's on her, and we accept it. But if you can forgive those words, I thank you on her behalf. I sat in the yard's wicker chair, reading the text twice. Then I replied. Have her send me a message herself, not secondhand. About 20 minutes later, Tian Wei's number sent a short message. Zhou ran. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. Everything you did was right. Everything I said was wrong. I just want to say I'm sorry. Not for my job, but for my words. Take care of yourself. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I replied with one word. Okay. We never spoke again. The next day, I returned to my rental. I pulled all the remaining CPA textbooks off the shelf and lined them up neatly on my desk. Starting then, I woke at 7 every morning to study. Light lunch in the afternoon. More practice problems. Online lectures at night. Life became regular and quiet, like a pond that had been cleared, no sediment at the bottom, the surface reflecting clearly. Occasionally, updates came from former colleagues. Zhao Lei said that after Tian Wei left, HR got a new interim director, transferred from HQ. Rigid and by the book. Everyone was still adjusting. Director Su's recent budget proposals were much cleaner. Apparently the GM had given him a private talk. I didn't reply to those messages, but I read them all. 2 weeks later, I went back to the old house for dinner. After the meal, my father and I had tea in the yard. He mentioned offhandedly, the GM at Sunflower is changing. Yeah. Old Lu. Retired. Age caught up. The new one is recommended by Uncle Ming. 8 years in group strategy. Solid experience. My father held his teacup, looking at me. You interested in going back? On paper, it's a subsidiary. In practice, it's a place to cut your teeth. Let me run Sunflower. Start as deputy GM. Partner with the new GM for 6 months. If you want it, you can take over after that. If not, you'll have finished your CPA by then. Go somewhere else. I sat in the wicker chair, thinking. The wind moved through the yard, the last few roses swaying gently on their stems. In the distance, someone was walking a dog. It barked a few times and went quiet. Okay, I said. My father looked at me. A flicker at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, but something close. He took a sip of tea. Monday. Report in. And that HR business won't happen again. I know. That night, on my way back to the rental, I passed the convenience store. The plastic chairs were still there, but November had turned cold. The ginkgo leaves lay in golden drifts under the street lights. I stood and watched for a moment, then kept walking. Monday. New office. New role. I'd keep the rental for a while. Until the exams were done. The succulent still sat on the windowsill. The pen was still in its cup. Everything in its place. But some things were different. Monday morning. I wore a dark gray blazer. As I left the rental, I glanced in the mirror. Hair cut. Face clean shaven. I looked sharper than I had a month ago. But the aimless slackness in my eyes was gone. I didn't bike. I took a ride. When the car pulled up to the Sunflower building, I paid and got out. Stood there for a moment, looking up at the building. November wind hit my face. The revolving door kept spinning. I walked in. New receptionist. The girl who knew me had been transferred. The new one looked up, blinked. Good morning, sir. Who are you here to see? 8th floor. New deputy GM. Her expression shifted from service mode to confusion, then to recognition that she'd seen my face somewhere. Professionalism won. She didn't ask, just nodded. The elevators are on the right. 8th floor. I stepped into the elevator. As the numbers ticked up, I leaned against the corner, watching the glowing digits climb. Last time I'd ridden this elevator, it was the day I'd been fired. Box at my feet. Same route. Different everything. The doors opened on the 8th floor. A new reception area. More spacious than before, with the company name in fresh lettering. The door at the end of the hall was open. Voices drifting out. As I walked through the open area, people didn't notice me at first. Then someone looked up, did a double take. His eyes went wide. A male colleague I'd shared a row with called out, Joe. Joe ran. The whole floor seemed to pause. Keyboard stopped. Paper stopped shuffling. Everyone turned. I nodded at them. Morning. I kept walking down the hall to the end office. The plaque on the door read, Deputy General Manager's Office. Brand new brass. The protective film still intact. The new GM was named Wei Ming. Early 40s. Tall and lean, with thin-framed glasses. He stood when I entered, extending his hand. Joe ran. I'm Wei Ming. Uncle Ming mentioned you. Mr. Wait. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Your office was just set up yesterday. Let admin know if you need anything. I sat and looked out the window. Excellent view overlooking the row of ginkgo trees. Most of the yellow leaves had fallen, but the branches were sharp and clear in the sunlight. Below was the street I'd walked for 3 years. The convenience store at the corner was still open. The plastic chairs were still there. Mr. Wei, whatever you need from me, just say it. Wei Ming leaned back with a smile. Joe ran. You're from Group HQ. Your father is the chairman. I'm not about to assign you work. We'll figure it out together. Here was my thought. You worked in finance for 3 years. You know this company's foundations better than anyone. I'd like you to lead an internal audit and process optimization project. Review every financial procedure, approval authority, budget management system from the last 5 years. Fill the gaps. Trim the fat. I'm sure you saw plenty of problems when you were on the ground floor. Now you can fix them. This surprised me. I'd expected a figurehead role, but he was handing me the core work right away. Mr. Wei, I've done some preliminary analysis on this, but a full audit will require cooperation from many departments. Coordination is my job. Wei Ming said. You audit. You revise. I've cleared it with HQ. Your proposals. My signature. No multi-level approvals. I looked at him. Nodded. All right. From that day on, I re-entered the finance office. Different seat. My old corner desk was still empty. Zhao Lei's jaw dropped when she saw me. Then she laughed. Other colleagues had mixed expressions. Admiration, curiosity, caution. After all, I'd been complaining about overtime with them a month ago. Now I was their deputy GM. I didn't put on airs. First day, I pulled up a chair next to Zhao Lei and asked her to pull the project approval logs from the past 3 years. Colleagues occasionally came by with questions. I answered them like before AT lunch. Zhao Lei sat across from me and lowered her voice. Zhou ran. After Tian Wei, the whole finance department thought you'd come back for revenge. Did you? You don't think so? You got fired. And now you're back as her boss, even though she's gone. Everyone's wondering if you'll clean house on anyone who was close to her. I chewed a bite. Thought about it. Zhao Lei, I'm not here to settle scores. I'm here to fix things. You know the old process holes better than anyone. Help me dig them up? She looked at me for a moment, then nodded and went back to her food. That afternoon, I walked past HR. The door was open. The new interim director, a woman in her 40s, transferred from HQ. Sat inside. She noticed me at the door and stood with a smile. Mr. Zhou, need something? Just passing by. I looked inside. Tian Wei's old desk was gone. New computer, new files, new plant. The layout was completely different. The room has been rearranged. Director's son said, following my gaze. The old layout wasn't working. I had admin reconfigure it. Is something wrong? No. It's fine. I turned and walked away. The hall lights were the same warm white. The floor tiles the same beige. Everything looked the same. And nothing did. At the end of the day, I was the last to leave. I turned off my office light and stood in the hallway, looking out at the night view. Financial district lights blazed. Distant traffic traced rivers of light through the dusk. A month ago, I'd walked out of this building with a box on my shoulder, carrying the weight of being told I wasn't good enough. Now I was back, with authority to rewrite the processes and a clear-eyed knowledge of every weakness in this building. My phone buzzed. My dad. How was the first day? I replied. Good. Wei Ming wants me to do process optimization. That plan you put together before, that you can use it now. He knew. He'd probably been waiting for me to come back and do this. I pocketed the phone and stepped into the elevator. In the mild weightlessness of the descent, I looked at my reflection in the metal wall. My expression was calm. Not excited. Not nervous. Just back where I was supposed to be. Over the next 2 weeks, I locked myself in the finance archives. Old paper ledgers filled half the room. Filing cabinets reaching the ceiling. Open a drawer, and the smell of aged paper and dust wafted out. I brought in an intern from admin to help with scanning, while I sat in the corner flipping pages one by one. On the third day, I found something. A purchase payment from the third quarter last year. Not huge. around 60,000. But the approval trail showed two anomalies. First, the purchase requisition number didn't match the corresponding receiving report by 3 digits. They should have been sequential. But this requisition linked to an entirely different material receipt. Second, a step was skipped in the approval chain. The finance manager's electronic signature was missing, but the payment had still gone through. I photocopied both documents and tucked them in my notebook. Said nothing. On day 5, I found another one. An equipment purchase from the end of last year. Contract amount 120,000, but split into 3 payments, each with different justification. First, deposit. Second, progress payment. Third, final settlement. But the contract clearly stated one lump sum. I did the math. The 3 payments added up to 3,800 more than the contract amount. I separated these documents into a stack on the corner of my desk. On day 7, the intern dropped a folder while carrying a new box of files. Papers scattered everywhere. As I helped pick them up, I found a small note folded into a corner tucked between pages of a contract. Handwritten in ballpoint pinpoint 12.17. Lou. Return 7.2. No context. No signature. No approval number. Just a scrap of paper shoved into the pile. I took a photo, then tucked the original back into its contract. That evening, I didn't leave right away. After everyone else had gone, I sat back in the archives and pulled every purchase record from the past 3 years involving anyone with the surname Lou. I cross-referenced them with the anomalous payment documents. Point 1 name surfaced. Lu Ping, a procurement supervisor who'd been with the company nearly a decade. Quiet, competent, B+ on every annual review. I reviewed the project records he'd handled. 23 procurement contracts in 3 years. 5 of them showed clear approval chain jumps. Total value under 400,000. But each one had substantial profit margins. Sole source procurement categories. Only 1 or 2 suppliers. No competitive benchmarks. The next morning, I organized my findings into a brief report and knocked on Wei Ming's door. He read the few pages in silence, then sat for a long moment, set the report on the desk, took off his glasses, cleaned them, put them back on. Zhou ran. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting someone set up a kickback channel in procurement. 3 anomalous payments. A skipped approval step. A questionable note. Any one of them alone could be explained. Together, they point to one person. Wei Ming looked at me. How do you want to handle it? Lock down Lu Ping's procurement records for the last 3 years. Full third-party audit. Until the results come back. No action. And no one knows what we're looking for. You'll get pressure from above if you move on procurement. I move quietly. Get the evidence solid first. Then it's legal's problem. Wei Ming leaned back, tapping his fingers on the desk. Then he nodded. Go ahead. If anyone at HQ asks, I'll run interference. Thank you. Mr. WEI.AS. I stepped out of his office. I passed someone in the hall. Lu Ping. He was holding a file, heading toward procurement. When he saw me coming out of the GM's office, his step faltered for a moment. Then he produced his usual mild, easy smile. Mr. Zhou. Busy these days. I heard you're digging through old files. His tone was casual, but I caught the probing note. I smiled back. Not busy. Just reorganizing the archives. The old filing system was a mess. He nodded. Didn't press, and walked on. I watched his silhouette disappear around the corner. Same as always. Steady pace. A slight stoop. 10 years at this company. He knew every corner. He probably thought that with Tianwei gone and a new GM in place, his system could keep running. He didn't know I'd been in the archives for 7 days. And the results of those 7 days were locked in the safe in my office. When the third-party audit team came in, I stayed out of sight. Wei Ming announced it as a routine annual compliance review, using HQ's internal audit group. The lead auditor was a man in his 40s named Han. Meticulous, thorough. That first afternoon, he requested the complete list of procurement contracts from the last 3 years, along with supplier rosters, payment ledgers, and receiving reports. Everything went into the conference room. Lu Ping remained outwardly calm. Routine. He arrived at 9, made tea, checked email, signed documents, went to the cafeteria with colleagues at lunch, passed finance occasionally, exchanged small talk. Nothing unusual, but I knew he knew. Because on the afternoon the audit started, I saw him leave procurement with no papers in hand, heading straight for the stairwell. 12 minutes later, he emerged from the lobby and made a phone call in the corner for 5 minutes. It was windy, but he chose a sheltered spot. Phone pressed tight to his ear. I didn't try to trace who he called. It wasn't time to startle the prey. On the third day of the audit, Auditor Han requested a private meeting. He closed the door and spread a summary sheet across the table, with 5 transactions circled in red all tied to procurement contracts signed by Lu Ping. Mr. Zhou. These 5 share a common thread. Same supplier. Registered in the neighboring state. Incorporated 2 months before the first transaction. Changed company names 3 times. But the legal representative is the same person. Their upstream supply price is 22% above market average. But our contracts are signed at that inflated rate. Any evidence of kickbacks? Not direct yet. Han pointed to another line. But there's a money trail. This supplier makes a regular payment. Quarterly. Around 7,000 TOA restaurant. The restaurant's legal representative shares Lu's surname. I checked employee records. Lu's parents' address matches the restaurant's registration. Can we make the link airtight? We've submitted a request for bank records. Should get results in 3 to 5 days. Good. Keep me posted. The moment you have something solid. After Han left, I sat in my office for a long time. Outside, the sky was darkening. The ginkgo trees were just dark silhouettes against the dusk. Timeline. Wednesday today. Bank records should be back by Monday at the latest. If the evidence held, internal procedures would start Tuesday, but something happened that evening that pushed the timeline up, just after quitting time. As I was tidying my desk, my phone rang. Zhou ran. Are you free? There's something I should tell you. Go ahead. She hesitated, lowering her voice. I was leaving work just now. I saw Lu Ping go into HR. He was in Director Sun's office for maybe 10 minutes. When he left, he was carrying an envelope. The HR light was still on. But Director Sun was supposed to be off this afternoon. Director Sun was off today. But the HR light was on. And Lu Ping had walked out with an envelope. I hung up and called Director Sun directly. She answered. Background noise suggested she was out. Director Sunday. You took leave today? Yes. Parent-teacher conference at my son's school. I left this afternoon. Is everything okay? Mr. Zhou, just confirming. Who has backup keys to your office? Admin has one set. I have mine. The light in your office is on. A pause. I turned it off when I left. Mr. Zhou. What's going on? Don't worry. I'll check it out. I hung up and walked back through the darkened office. Motion sensor lights flicked on one by one. The HR door was closed, but a sliver of light bled from under it. I used my phone's flashlight to peek through the gap. The light was indeed on inside. And several files on the desk had been disturbed. I didn't open the door. I took a photo. Then I went to admin and checked the backup key log. Entry. Today, 5:30 p.m., Lu Ping. Procurement. Borrowed key to HR intern workstation. Purpose. Retrieve previously stored health check report. But the intern's desk keys were on the same ring as Director Sun's office key. Borrowing 1 mint access to all. Lu Ping had been in Director Sun's office. What was he looking for? Back in my office. I locked every audit-related document in the safe, including the photocopies of the suspicious payments. Then I texted Wei Ming. Mr. Wei. Lu Ping entered HR after hours. He may know about the audit. Recommend accelerating the timeline. Wei Ming replied with 2 words. Understood. The next morning, Han's team produced partial results ahead of schedule, though the full bank records weren't back. He'd verified a key transaction through another channel. The supplier made quarterly transfers to the restaurant owned by Lu's mother. Like clockwork. The latest one was the 15th. For 7,400. I laid out all the pieces. Phantom supplier. Inflated procurement. Fixed kickback schedule. Related party recipients. Every link in the chain had a paper or electronic record. The only missing element was the final piece, something signed by Lu Ping himself, like a receipt or acknowledgement. Then, at noon, that evidence walked through my door. A young procurement colleague, someone who usually worked closely with Lu, came to see me. He looked uneasy, standing in my doorway with an envelope in his hand. Mr. Zhou, this. I think you should see this. I invited him in and had him sit. He placed the envelope on the desk and opened it. Inside were several instant print photos. The photos showed an envelope stuffed with cash, next to a folded note. The angles were casual. Like someone had taken quick pictures without being noticed. What's this? This morning, Lu asked me to deliver something to an address on the west side. When I got there, the recipient opened it and counted the cash in front of me. I glimpsed it. It was cash. The young colleague rubbed his hands. I didn't say anything at the time, but when I got back to the office, I couldn't shake it. I went to his office. Saw this still in his drawer. Not locked. Oh, I took the photos. You took the photos and left the originals. Yes. I only photographed. I put everything back before I left. I studied the photos. The cash appeared to be between $6,000 and $8,000. On the folded note next to it, I could make out a few characters. Last quarter settlement and a date. You put the items back exactly where they were. Did you tell anyone else that I know? You're the first. I patted him on the shoulder. Good. Go back to your desk. Act like nothing happened. Don't mention this to anyone. He stood and left. I sat at my desk, flipping through the photos. Not direct evidence. Photos of cash and a note in Lou's drawer didn't prove where the money came from or where it went. But they gave me a foothold for deeper investigation. I messaged Han. Speed it up. Can we get preliminary results by this afternoon? He replied. Yes, at 2:30 p.m. Han returned with the final evidence. The money trail was complete. Supplier account restaurant under Lu's mother's name, personal account of Lu Ping's wife. 3 transfers. Time to match the payment dates of the 5 suspicious procurement contracts. The chain was closed. I consolidated everything into a full report and delivered it to Wei Ming's office before 4 p.m. He read it, made one phone call, then looked at me. Legal will take over. Don't mention this to anyone for now. Understood. At quitting time. I walked past procurement. Lu Ping was still at his desk, headphones on, expression unreadable, but I knew he wouldn't be sitting there much longer. I walked out of the building and into the November evening. As the streetlights came on, I remembered the note. 12.17 Lu. Return 7.2. But there were less than 30 days left until then. And the author of that note would soon be saying goodbye to more than just the money. The day Lu Ping was taken away was a Tuesday. Windy. The last of the ginkgo leaves had all blown off, carpeting the sidewalk in gold. At 9:30 a.m. I was reading emails when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Steady. Fast. Then the muffled sound of a door closing from procurement's direction. I set down my phone and walked to my door. Through the glass partition, I could see Lu Ping sitting at his desk. 2 figures in dark coats stood with him. One speaking, the other flipping through papers on his desk. Lu Ping's face was calm, calmer than I'd expected. He nodded, stood up, took his jacket from the back of his chair, put it on, and followed them out. As he walked past my office, his gaze swept toward me. Our eyes met for about a second. Then he turned away and followed the 2 men into the elevator. I went back to my desk and continued reading emails. At 10 a.m. Wei Ming texted. Legal's process is complete. Lu's been taken. Economic crime leads are being handed to investigators. The pros will handle it from here. I replied. Understood. At 10.30. A procurement team lead came to my office to ask if Lu's purchasing approval authority should be frozen. I said all of it, effective immediately, until a transition plan was ready. All purchase requests went through the GM's special approval. He nodded and left. The office atmosphere was heavy all morning. No one openly discussed what happened, but everyone was communicating with their eyes. I overheard whispers in the break room. They stopped when I walked in. As I filled my water and walked out, Zhao Lei hurried to catch up. Zhou ran. I heard Lu was taken away. I said about those procurement issues. Let legal issue the official announcement. Don't go spreading rumors. She nodded and didn't press, but she walked away with a slightly lighter step. At lunch. The cafeteria was crowded. I found a quiet corner table. Someone sat across from me. Director Su. He set down his tray and didn't eat right away. He looked at me first. Mr. Zhou, I heard about Lu Ping. That's big. Director Su keeps his ear to the ground. Marketing. Can't survive without information. He took a bite, chewing slowly. But honestly, the fact that he hid this for 3 years says the old approval system had plenty of holes. You're the one sealing them up. I've got something to say. And it's not flattery that you belong in that seat more than he ever did. I glanced at him. Is this also you confessing to your own data padding days? He paused, then laughed. An open, hearty laugh. I've owned that. Won't do it again. Watch me. He stood with his tray and walked off. I finished my meal, drank a bowl of free soup, and returned my dishes. That afternoon, an official email arrived from HQ regarding the Lu Ping case and transition arrangements. The final paragraph mentioned, for employees who proactively reported leads and assisted the investigation, anonymous commendation and cash bonuses will be provided. I knew who it was. That young colleague with the photos. Even though he hadn't told me what he'd done after. When he took those pictures, he'd known exactly what step he was taking. At quitting time. I ran into him near the entrance. He was about to leave. I tapped his shoulder. Come here a second. He followed me to the hallway corner. Looking nervous, I pulled a card from my pocket. The bonus card the company had issued that afternoon. Not a huge amount, but enough for a month's rent. Here, you earned it.mr. Joe, you earned it. But remember, next time you find something like this, don't hesitate. Go to the right person right away. He took it, clutched it in his hand, and nodded at me. His eyes were red. I didn't say more, just turned and walked out. On the way back to my rental, I received an unfamiliar text. Mr. Joe, I'm Lu Ping's son. I know what happened to my father. I'm not asking you to go easy on him, but I want to thank you for one thing, that you didn't make this public. My mother doesn't know the details yet. She's not well. If she found out he'd been arrested, I don't know if she could handle it. I don't know if this was deliberate on your part. Either way, thank you. I stood on the subway, reading the message as the train rocked. I replied, if your mother needs anything, medical care. Support.hr has an employee family assistance program. It's still available. After a long pause, he replied, okay. The train arrived at my stop. I pocketed the phone, stepped out, passed through the gates, and emerged above ground. The night wind was cold. Street lights turned the remaining ginkgo leaves on the pavement into scattered gold. As I walked, I crumpled the bonus card receipt in my pocket. But didn't throw it away. I put it in another pocket. That chapter was closed. But I knew Lu Ping was only one part of the problem in this building. There were more cracks to fill, more procedures to rewrite. That was the real work. In the week after Lu Ping was taken, the company's atmosphere shifted. Not the jittery tension of uncertainty, but a feeling of things being cleared out, opened up. Meetings had easier energy. Cross-department collaboration improved. Director Su reported more conservative numbers in 2 budget meetings. His marketing team stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Friday afternoon, Wei Ming invited me for tea in his office. He brewed a pot of oolong, poured me a cup, then leaned by the window with his own. Lu Ping's case is settled. Lawyers will handle it from here. What's your focus next? Process redesign. I said, in 3 years in finance, I saw problems beyond procurement, overlapping approval authorities, budget controls that are basically decorative, inconsistent data interfaces across departments. I want to rebuild from the ground up. How long? 3 to 4 months for the framework. Live within 6 months, Wei Ming thought, then nodded. Enough staff. Zhao Lei and I work well together. Also, I'd like to borrow someone from HQ for the systems architecture piece. Need to redo the data interfaces from scratch. Fine. Submit the request. I'll approve it.as I walked out. The window at the end of the hall caught a sunset that painted the sky in warm orange. I stood there for a moment. My phone buzzed. My dad. Heard Lu Ping's case is closed. Yes, good job. Come home for dinner. Not tonight. Working on process framework with Zhao Lei. Tomorrow. Ribs. I smiled at the window and replied, okay. Saturday noon, I went to the old house. My father had actually cooked the ribs himself, the pot still steaming when he brought it to the table. The aroma of star anise and cinnamon filling the room. We sat across from each other, said little, and each had a bowl of rice and cleaned the ribs. Afterward, he made tea, sat on the sofa watching the news. I sat beside him. A business segment showed a drone shot of an office building. Sunflowers District. When are you moving back? My father asked. After the new processes go live. I'm used to that rental now. Haven't finished packing. He didn't say yes or no. Just took a sip of tea and changed the channel. Monday back at the office. Zhao Lei had already rearranged my desk. The succulent had a new pot. Files were stacked neatly. A small pot hose now sat beside my computer. Zhao Lei. You gave my desk a makeover. Improving the work environment. Boosting productivity. She said it matter-of-factly. That pot hose is from my place. Take good care of it. I sat down and opened my laptop. A new email from Director Sunday, HR. A draft proposal for employee benefits optimization. She'd clearly been spurred by recent events and wanted to reinforce HR's ethical baseline. I opened the email and started reading it line by line. Sunlight slanted through the window, casting a warm square across my desk. The pothose leaves gleamed green and glossy. The succulent was the same one from my old cubicle. Now here in my new office. The pen with its scratched barrel sat in its cup. I read 3 pages of the proposal. Took a call from HQ about the loan staff. Then Zhao Lei knocked to bring in 2 approval forms. I signed them. Director Su sent a message asking if next week's budget meeting could be moved to Wednesday. I said yes. Everything was running. At 4 p.m. I finished replying to the benefits proposal, leaned back, and stretched. Outside, the ginkgo trees were bare branches now. But a magpie perched on one. Tail bobbing. My phone lit up. A message from an unsaved contact. It took me a moment to place them. The young colleague with the photos. He'd changed numbers, but kept me in his contacts. He'd sent a photo. A new employee handbook. With the company's updated logo on the cover. Below it, he wrote, Mr. Joe, I got the new handbook today. There's a new section, Whistleblower Protection Policy. It says you pushed for the revision. Thank you. I'll keep doing good work. I looked at the photo, then locked the screen. The magpie flew off. The branch was empty for a moment before a sparrow landed. Smaller, more restless, hopping twice along the twig. I put my hands behind my head and surveyed the office. Clean, tidy, sun-filled. The pothose on the corner stretched its leaves in the quiet light. Keyboards clattered in the distance. Someone laughed in the hallway. The click of a coffee cup on a desktop. Short and crisp, everything moved forward. Quietly. I sat up straight, picked up the pen, and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote, Sunflower Branch Process Redesign Plan, Phase 1. And then I began writing the first line.